Hello, my name's Di from Wild Harvest School of Self-Reliance, and I'll be talking to you today about natural toiletries. And we'll start by looking at some of the products that are in your toiletries, the shop-bought toiletries, and then we'll have a look at how you can replace these with things from nature. So, if we tested the urine of all of you now, 100% of you would have some kind of body product in there, probably parabens. That's just a fact. The environmental working groups say that we put about 168 different chemicals on our bodies every day. It's about half of that for men, and that amounts to about 2 kilograms a year. 2 kilograms a year, that's a heck of a lot. And if you think you don't, because a lot of people say, oh, I won't put that much on, but actually there's one word in your toiletries, that's the word perfume or parfum. That one word itself can contain 200 different chemicals, so it's quite easy to see how we can get to 168 a day. So with that in mind, we're going to start by looking at some of the other toxic chemicals that are in our body products. The first one, we've already mentioned parabens. Now, the reason I say most of you will probably have parabens in your urine is because we've been lathering our bodies with parabens for 80 years. It's our oldest preservative. Manufacturers put preservatives in products to extend the shelf life and to stop microbial growth. So parabens is the first one. The second one is, we've probably all covered ourselves at some point in PPG and PEG. They're polypropylene glycol and polyethylene glycol. And basically they're very close to polystyrene, oven cleaner and antifreeze. And the reason that PPG and PEG are in your products is they do two things. Firstly, they act as an emulsifier, so that kind of binds together the water-based ingredients and oil-based ingredients. Secondly, they help soften, whether it's the skin or the hair, and how they do that, they don't soften in themselves, but they drag other products deeper into the skin or the hair, so they kind of drag it into deeper layers. So that's how PEG and PPG work. Another thing that will be in your toiletries at the moment, we've got SLS, that's sodium lauryl sulfate. If anybody's ever got shampoo in your eyes and you end up with red raw eyes, that's the sodium lauryl sulfate. It's also in toothpaste, and why it's there is they're surfactants, they're foamers. They're there to kind of make the water froth and to help strip away the grease. So SLS, sodium lauryl sulfate, a lot of companies have replaced that now because they're aware that we know it's quite irritating on mucous membranes. So they've replaced it with SLES, sodium lauryl sulfate, which is still irritating, but now they've replaced it even more recently. A lot of them have replaced it with sodium cocoate and sodium palmate. These are all surfactants. They're all there to help your product foam and carry the dirt away. Now, sodium cocoate is actually made from coconuts, sodium palmate from palm oil, and we don't grow either of those in the UK. At Wild Harvest, I'm really keen to empower you to use what grows around you. So what else have we got? Triclosan. If you've ever used antibacterial hand wash, you might have seen contains triclosan. Now, the manufacture of triclosan actually causes the release of dioxins, and dioxins are particularly nasty. They're the thing that are changing the sex of all the fish in our water. In fact, the World Health Organization, they said that dioxins, they have a half-life of between 7 and 11 years in the human body. So and they particularly like women because dioxins love the endocrine system and fatty tissues. That's where they tend to stay. So we've got triclosan. Mineral oil is the next thing. You'll find mineral oil in just about everything, from toothpaste, shampoo, conditioner, body butter. Mineral oil is used because it's clear, it's cheap, it's unscented, so it can kind of take on the scent of whatever they want to put with it. Now, what mineral oil is when you take crude oil and you distill it and turn it into petrol, mineral oil is the byproduct of that. The World Health Organization class mineral oil in its raw state as a grade 1 carcinogen. Even after it's been refined, they class it as a grade 3 carcinogen, and this is in even baby products. If you get your product from the EU, usually the mineral oil is very, very highly screened. But when we look to what's around us anyway with plant oils, nut and seed oils, we don't really need to be using mineral oil. It's certainly not as effective as plant and seed oils. Emulsifiers is the other thing you'll have in your body products, and they're there to cause the oil and oil and water components to mix. Of course, if you were making your own product, you'd simply shake it. All right, that's the best emulsifier, just give it a shake. And finally, you're likely to have glycerin. Again, glycerin is found in toothpastes, shampoo, body products, and glycerin makes a nice texture. It kind of makes things smooth and runny, but it also it's a humectant. It absorbs water out of the air, and then it plumps the cells up with that water, or the hair. It kind of makes it soft because it absorbs water out of the air. There's not that much wrong with glycerin. I grew up playing with glycerin. My dad was a chemist, so we always had bottles of glycerin. Now, what glycerin is, it's a byproduct in the soap making industry. If you, when you add the alkali to the fat to make soap, the byproduct is glycerin, and then that itself can be taken and made into body products. There's an interesting fact about glycerin, and that's that, has anybody heard of Pear's soap and Yardley's? They did really well in the war because they were able to sell the government all their byproduct from the soap making. They were selling the government glycerin to make explosives. So yeah, but glycerin in itself, if you don't use too much of it, there's nothing wrong with glycerin. If you put quite a lot of glycerin in a product, it actually has the opposite effect. And instead of taking water out of the air, it'll take water out of your skin and become drying. So why does it matter? All of these toiletries that we're covering ourselves in, why does it matter that they contain these toxic or potentially toxic ingredients? I'm not eating them, you might say, so why does it matter? Well, it matters because I'm sure most of you have heard the idea that whatever you put on your skin that sits there, a lot of the molecules are so small that they will pass through the skin into the small blood vessels, which will feed into the big blood vessels, and those toxins can actually lodge in vital organs like the kidneys, the liver, the brain, the endocrine system, the lymph system, and build up over time. Now, the manufacturers try to reassure us by saying the parts per million of these toxic chemicals are so small that it won't matter. Now, if you think we'll be probably spending 60, 70, maybe even 80 years of our lives putting things on our body, so there's been no longitudinal study that's that long. So really, the cumulative build-up, we've already seen how dioxin has a half-life of between 7 and 11 years. So it's the cumulative build-up of these things over our life course. Nobody knows. So we're not trying to avoid chemicals altogether when we learn how to make natural chemicals, because I always say to people who come to me and say, I want to learn how to make chemical-free toiletries. It's not possible really, because all of the plants, they contain phytochemicals. So we're not looking to avoid chemicals per se, just the toxic ones, and trying to go natural and local where possible. So if we look at the industry, can we trust the industry then? If you think of labels, how many of you read labels? When you pick up some toiletries product in the shop, do you read the label? Apparently, according to a Mintel survey, only something like 20-something% of us will actually read a label. We trust the manufacturer that much. Of that 20-odd%, only 50% will buy the product if they see the word natural. They don't go on to read any more, they just see the word natural and that's it. They won't read any further. So we're probably not as inquiring as we should be when it comes to questioning the things on the label. And the toiletries industry actually have a little bit of a shady reputation. As far back as 1973, a big baby products manufacturer was producing talc that contained asbestos, and we were lathering all that over babies, because when you mine talc out of the earth, talc deposits exist very closely with asbestos deposits, and they just didn't screen it. So 1973 was the start of kind of awareness of what we were putting on our bodies. The other thing is that with the labels, when you see the word natural and we kind of feel reassured, we shouldn't, because there's actually no legal status to the word natural. It can mean that you can include the word natural and have something like 0.005% tea tree oil in. So don't be fooled by the word natural on a toiletries product. The other word is organic. Because the toiletries industry is a chemical industry, when they use the term organic, we tend to think of fields full of bees and no pesticides, a layman's term of organic, but they can call a product organic and it can actually mean was once alive, it was once living, which is crude oil. Crude oil can be classed as organic in the chemical industry. So try to look beyond the label. So parabens, talking about labels, I don't know if any of you have ever seen paraben free lately. There's a certain big company, they're putting paraben free all over. Because the companies are aware of our awareness now, So they are trying to say paraben free to reassure us, but what they're actually doing instead, they're replacing parabens with a different kind of preservative. Has anybody heard of MIT, M-I-T? So if you look, they'll have taken parabens out, so it says paraben free. I think some of these products might even be called pure, but instead they've put MIT in. Now what MIT used to be was a preservative in boat paint. It was put in boat paint to prevent algal growth on the side of ships. And for some reason the toiletries industry decided that would be fine to put in our body products. However, just after a few years of putting MIT in instead of parabens, they've discovered it's a neurotoxin. In fact, Unilever, if you look on Unilever's website today, you will see how they talk about the fact they are phasing out MIT just after a few years. So the science is only good as the day that they're making these claims. So personally, I don't feel that we can trust the industry. Always read the label, always question what you're putting on your body. The good news though is Mother Nature provides everything we need around us. All of our toiletries needs can be seen by just what is growing around us, the plants, the things that are in the earth. So to start with, I want you to think about all the bottles in your house, okay? So toothpaste, shampoo, conditioner, shower gel, body butter. If you think they all fall into two categories, there's only two products really. All of those things are basically, they fall into two categories. One is it cleans. Two is it nourishes. So for example, with your hair, shampoo is the cleaner and conditioner is the nourisher. Shower gel is the cleaner, body butter is the nourisher. All products will fall into those two categories. So what if I told you, my dad was a surfactant, he worked in the chemical industry designing surfactants, very unusual upbringing, playing with all this stuff at home. So what if I told you that you could actually just have two products in your house that did everything? One cleaner, one nourisher, and you could do your hair with that, you could do your body with that, you could use clean your kitchen worktops and then polish them. So what we're going to look at now is what in nature falls into the cleaning category, and then we'll look at what in nature you can use for nourishing. So nature gives us, if we look around, how we can replace things like SLS and sodium lauryl sulfate. We can replace those with a few things from nature for cleaning. The first is acids. There's loads of acids in nature. So when you think in terms of, I've got one here that I made earlier for you. This is vinegar. So you can make vinegar very, very easily from any plant material that you allow it to ferment. So vinegar is an acid. It will strip away the dirt and carry it off down the plug hole. Okay, so acids, vinegar. We've got yogurt. Did you know you can just clean your face with yogurt? Yogurt is acidic. It will strip away the dirt. We've also got plant acids like salicylic acid, oxalic acid. So we've got acids in plants that can help clean your face. And of course we've got citrus. If anybody's ever left a citrus fruit in their fruit bowl until it gets rock hard and you tap it, say a lime, a little green lime, if you tap it and it's hollow, it's been there for a long time, say, 8% of that dried lime will be citric acid. And how we make citric acid, obviously you can just use the citrus as it is, but how the industry makes citric acid, and I do work with citric acid because it is a natural chemical. I've got some there. Citric acid, they ferment this dried citrus fruit, then they add an alkali, it causes it to froth. They scrape the white froth off the surface and they dry it into this. So some things don't look like they're natural, but this is a natural chemical. So we've got citrus to clean, we've got acids, we've got acids in the form of citrus, vinegars, yogurt and plant acids. The other thing in nature that can clean in addition to acids is the opposite end of the pH scale, so alkalis. If you've ever left rainwater in a barbecue and you've made a grey sludge, you've actually created lye with a pH of 14. Now the Tudors would clean a lot with wood ash and water. They would scrub floors, pots, because they realised way back that it was a really good agent for breaking down dirt and fat. You wouldn't really want to put neat lye or potassium hydroxide as it's called on your body because it would burn you, it's so high. However, if you mix it with other things you can neutralise it. So we've got plant acids, yogurt, citrus and vinegar, and then the opposite to the acids we've got alkali in the form of wood ash, potassium hydroxide. We've also got in nature saponins. Has anybody heard the term saponin? I want to dispel a couple of myths about saponin, because there are actually lots and lots of different saponins. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, it's got saponin in that plant. For example, the horse chestnut, I don't know if any of you know the horse chestnut is our native soap nut. Horse chestnuts actually have 4 different saponins in, all right? So saponin is one of nature's surfactants. It will cause a little bit of foaming and break down the dirt and carry it away. So we've got saponins. The other myth I wanted to bust actually about saponins is a lot of plants that are labelled as saponin rich are actually, they have esters in them, not saponins. One example of that is birch. The birch tree, a lot of people talk about how it can wash you because it contains saponins. Well, that's esters. I've got birch leaves here dried. So we've got saponins as a form of natural cleaning agent, and then we've got esters as well. So the other place, sorry, to find saponins, I should have said, was honeysuckle. You can find, apart from in horse chestnut, you can find it in honeysuckle, which is delicious in a shampoo. You can find it in soapwort, campion, which I've got growing in the garden. I did have soapwort growing in the garden, but I killed it by putting it in a hanging basket and it didn't like it. Campion, I've got horse chestnuts in the garden, and the other thing, oddly, very surprisingly, is beans. Beans are very saponin rich if you wanted a quick wash. The humble haricot bean, the baked bean, is something like 4% saponin, and soybeans even more so at 6% saponin. So, and both of those can be grown in the UK. So as you can see, we've got plenty of home-based things that we can clean with. So on the other side of that then, oh, one more thing to tell you about cleaning, and that's clay. So we looked at kind of plants and other things, but did you know that clay, has anybody used clay in toiletries making? If you have, you're probably aware that it kind of draws out impurities, it scrubs off dirt. Now this here is bentonite clay, and I use it in my homemade toothpaste, which I'll show you in a video another time. It looks really grim, promise me you won't. There, that's my homemade toothpaste that contains bentonite clay. If you think, well, why would you clean your teeth with clay? Wouldn't it be a bit abrasive? It's actually very gentle. In fact, to reassure you, in India, they actually clean the Taj Mahal with bentonite clay. The marble of the Taj Mahal is cleaned with bentonite clay. So I hope that reassures you, you can use it in your toothpaste. So bentonite clay, it's actually, believe it or not, found all over England. Have you heard of Fuller's Earth? Who's heard of Fuller's Earth? That's our native kind of bentonite type clay. There's large deposits of it all over England. So again, it's a potential local natural cleaner. So on the other side now, we've got the nourishers. So we've got loads of things that can clean us. What can we use as the nourishers for our hair, our face, our bodies? It would have actually started in the cave days with women chopping up meat and taking the fat off. They would have realised that animal fat was incredibly softening for their skin, for their hands. And it wasn't long before they were infusing different petals and things into the animal fat and making body products. So the idea of wanting to put something nourishing on our skin is thousands of years old. So animal fat is one form of nourisher. So you've got lard, which you might be surprised to hear. Lard, which is pig fat, is actually as close to human skin for fat as you can possibly get. So you can just use lard. The other thing, if you were vegetarian and you wanted a different form of fat, still local, remember, it has to be available in England, we've got rapeseed fat. This is just pure rapeseed fat. It's not cut with palm oil or anything like that. So that's another form of fat for a nourisher. So you've got your animal fats, your vegetable fats, and then you've got nut and seed oils as nourishers. So I know a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, I make all my own natural toiletries, and then they'll talk about how they use shea butter and cocoa butter and avocado oil, and I say, but we don't grow any of those things. We do, however, have over 600,000 hectares of rapeseed. So we've got rapeseed oil here, and local Yorkshire rapeseed oil, and we've got rapeseed fat. We also have pumpkin seed oil and what's the other one? Hemp seed oil. We do not need to rob other cultures basic food stuff for our beauty. So you've got animal fats, you've got vegetable oil, plant-based oils and fats. You've also got beeswax. Now if you ever look at your product labels and you see the word Cera, C-E-R-A, Cera simply means beeswax. So beeswax is often included as a nourisher. It doesn't really do much itself, but what it does is it kind of traps the moisture in there to prevent it evaporating, and it keeps the other stuff in place, if you like. So it's not very it's a little bit inert in itself, but it tends to be used with other things, so it sits on the top. Now one of my favourite ingredients is this here is lanolin. Has anybody used lanolin? A lot of people worry about using lanolin, but no sheep are ever harmed in the production of lanolin. Basically, they have a haircut once a year, and you boil up the fleece, scrape off the lanolin from the top. Okay, lanolin is sheep fat. Again, it's not technically a fat; it's something different, but basically people call it sheep fat. Now, this is it here. It's very yellow, very thick and sticky, and if you put it on neat, it increases moisture retention by 30% with one application. I tend to mix it with other things so it's not quite as sticky, but lanolin is amazing. I mean, if you want, it's very simplest. You could just keep a sheep, stroke it and rub it on your face. So lanolin is amazing for nourishing. You can put it at the ends of your hair. I actually include it in my toothpaste, and I'll tell you that in a different session, toothpaste making. So for fats and nourishes then, we've got animal fat, vegetable fat, we've got nut and seed oils, we've got beeswax, and we've got lanolin. We don't need shea butter, we don't need cocoa butter. And finally, we've got glycerin as a humectant, which can be made in England and is natural. So with all that in mind, let's just show you some of my products. What have I got here? I've shown you my toothpaste. This is 100% natural and native body butter. And I've got lip balm and cheek tint. And we've got, I'm afraid this is a little bit dog-eared because it's been round to lots of shows. But this is actually, I don't know if you can see it, that is wood ash soap. It's wood ash lye mixed with, I tried it with lots of different fats, and I found actually that the rapeseed fat, with it being a hard fat, was best for making wood ash soap. So that's wood ash soap, and I made that about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's still alright, still smells fresh. I was actually going to take you outside to show you the campion, the honeysuckle and the horse chestnut, but I don't know if you can see, it's absolutely tanking down. So will you be happy instead with a toothpaste making session? We'll make some of these products next time. Alright, so I hope I've raised your awareness about some of the products in some of the ingredients in our toiletries and got you to at least read the label. If anybody's got any questions about what an ingredient is or how they can replace it with something from the natural world, do give me an email, okay? But enjoy your journeys. This is just the start. You can go away and make so many different natural things out of your garden, and let me know how it goes. So thank you for joining me, and yeah, happy toiletries making. Thank you, bye.